Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of MC Commute, where we'll be riding an all-new motorcycle, and one that I'm particularly excited about, not only for myself, but ready to share with you guys, and that being the 2021 Aprilia Tuono 660 that you see here behind me. Now, this is an all-new bike for Aprilia, an attack at the middleweight market, and it's got big shoes to fill with that Tuono name badge. So, we got a lot to talk about. Why don't we hit the road? All right, ladies and gentlemen, the 2021 Aprilia Tuono 660, and what a beaut of a machine this is, if I may say so myself. It has a tremendous amount of premium fit and finish feel that you'd expect from the Italian manufacturer, that 659cc parallel twin engine that we'll talk about once we get on the road. It's got Brembo brakes up front, a nice TFT dashboard behind the handlebars, and one thing that I have to note is I'm just taken away by this, in my personal opinion, but the look of this machine, the colorway, and not only that, but you got these aerodynamic winglets that we've also seen on the Aprilia RS 660. I think Aprilia has done an incredible job, but that's just my personal opinion. So why don't we fire this thing up and get on the road? Ooh. Man, not quite a 1100 V4, but damn does this thing sound good. Man. A little bit performance oriented, but I love it. Man, this bike is a really neat take at that middleweight naked segment, kind of offering Aprilia's performance, all their technical know-how of their V4 machines, like the Tuono V4, the RS V4, but placing it in a more approachable, more affordable package, as such being the Tuono 660. As we've mentioned before, the Tuono 660, along with its supersport cousin, the RS 660, is powered by a 659cc parallel twin engine that's essentially been derived from Aprilia's 1100 V4 platform. They got rid of the two rearward cylinders, stroked out the remaining two cylinders, and what you have is this power plant. We threw it up on the motorcyclist Dyno, recording horsepower and torque measurements, where this recorded 87 peak horsepower and about 45 foot-pounds of torque. Now that's an impressive figure for this displacement, and we're going to show you what this thing's got out on the real roads. Wow. Man, it sounds so good when you hit 8,000 RPM. I don't know if it's just the combination of the exhaust note and the intake, but it's kind of reminiscent of that V4 sound characteristic that makes that Tuono 1100 and the RS V4, for that matter, just so addicting. Now, as we've mentioned, it shares that same power plant with the RS 660. Now, it's important to note that there are a couple differences, not necessarily in the power plant itself, but the electronics package that is used to control this power plant. So the Tuono 660, along with the RS 660, uses Aprilia Performance Ride Control Rider Aid Suite. Now, what the Tuono does not have in comparison to the RS 660 is the inertial measurement unit, or the IMU. It also does not have a quick shifter fitted from the factory. Now, both of those can be equipped as accessories for $200 each. Thankfully for us, as you can see, we have the quick shifter fitted to this test unit. The lack of the IMU means that the electronics package is just slightly simpler in comparison to the RS 660. That means that the traction control, the 8-level traction control, and the wheelie control are now linked. So on the RS 660, you could use traction control but turn off wheelie control, or vice versa. You could leave on wheelie control but turn off traction control, because the IMU, it's going to sense movements in the motorcycle and react accordingly. Now, without the IMU, that means you either have traction control and wheelie control on, or you have both of those turned off at the same time. Is it a huge deal? Not in my opinion. But if you were to really want the IMU, which maybe extracts a little bit more performance, maybe tailors the motorcycle a little bit more to your liking, especially when you're hauling butt on the back roads, that $200 accessory is, I'm gonna say, well worth it. Obviously, in comparison to that RS660, which is the super sport version of the 660 platform that Aprilia has created, the Tuono is the naked version. So what you have is a lack of fairings, a lack of windscreen, but also the ergonomics are obviously revised as well. Let's hit this. Wow, man, this thing is so addicting. It really is so addicting to just get on the pipe and let this thing loose. But what I have to say is it's not going to get you, it's not as troublesome as maybe going wide open throttle and getting addicted to the Tuono 1100 V4, especially out on these public roads. Anyways, back to the ergonomics package. The Tuono 660 obviously comes equipped with this one-piece motocross style handlebar that gives it a better sense of control, a little bit more upright position, that's more comfortable for the daily commute, for the longer haul than maybe the RS660. The foot peg position is also slightly downward and forward. That takes a little bit of, I don't know, cramping away from your lower stance. Now, that's not to say that the RS660 was cramped by any means. It's actually relaxed in comparison to the competing middleweight supersport segment, but the Tuono obviously takes that a step further. But wait, there's more changes for this Tuono 660. Aprilia essentially optimized the steering geometry of this machine in comparison to the RS660. So the steering is actually a little bit steeper, a little bit more aggressive. They've also shortened the wheelbase, something like 5 millimeters, to give it a little bit different characteristic on the road in comparison to that RS. Now, I have to applaud Aprilia for doing that. I think they could have easily just phoned it in, threw an upright handlebar on it, took the fairings off of it, and probably sold a heck of a lot of these. But they didn't. They actually did their best to specialize this Tuono in what it should be, and I think they've done a killer job. In fact, I actually prefer the 660 platform more in the Tuono version than the RS660 version. Just the personality and characteristic of the chassis and overall ride feel better suits my liking, and I think that the 660 engine better fits the application of the Tuono rather than the RS. Along with the steering geometry, Aprilia also gave the KYB front fork its own internal damping settings that, in my opinion, offer a better ride down the road than the RS. I believe that it is slightly softer, and in my experience, it handles the small chatter bumps and just supports better overall small bump compliance than the RS660, and adds a lot of confidence, especially when the road gets or the asphalt is imperfect. I think that they did a really good job. In fact, I'd probably like to see that same internal setting applied to the RS as well. Let's see if we can get it. Ooh, yellow light. We made it though. Man, that thing sounds so good. I love the quick shifter on this on this Tuono as well. For a $200 accessory, I think it's well worth the extra cost. It's a bi-directional quick shifter, so I'll show you guys here in 1 second just how it works for clutchless downshifts as well. And auto blips that throttle to offer seamless, nearly seamless downshifts on deceleration. Now, one quick note I would like to make is that there is an $800 delta between the Tuono 660 and the RS 660. This Tuono starts at $10,499, while the RS is $11,299. So, if you were to fit this Tuono with the accessories that we've mentioned, the IMU and the quick shifter, you're still left with a $400 price difference cheaper than the RS 660. Kind of a nice touch. I thought I'd add that in there. We've been pretty good about red lights, but what that's going to give us is the opportunity for more acceleration. These people kind of looked at me like I'm freaking crazy just talking to myself. Little do they know, we're reviewing motorcycles. All right, one more. So good, so good. I love this bike. All right, let's see, boys and girls, let's see if we can get this roundabout, our favorite roundabout, onto the freeway with clear racetrack in front of us. Let's put this Tuono 660 to the test. 403 pounds fully fueled on the motorcyclist scales. Let's see how these Pirelli Diablo Rosso Corsa 2 tires do, how the suspension handles the bump, the infamous bump right here. Wow, that's not half bad. While taking it, this bike still remains composed, kind of justifying its sporty nature and sporty suspension settings. Cruising about 72 miles an hour in top gear, 6th gear, rolling right around 5,000 RPM. Now, what I have to compliment this bike on is it's an overall pleasant ride, not much vibrations, if anything, just a tidbit feeling through the pegs, but overall a very comfortable and, I don't know, practical feeling ride as we head down the freeway here. 5,000 RPM obviously leaves us a lot of room to work with in terms of passing power and getting by traffic if need be. Now, we also have this TFT dashboard that you can see here in front of me. I really enjoy what Aprilia has done with this. I think that it's very easily readable, with important information. Obviously, you have speed, you have gear indicator over there on the right, which gear indicators are my favorite. I always like to know which gear I'm in, and the rest of the information that's easily navigated through over here on the left handlebar cluster. Another important note about this bike is that it comes with cruise control, which I love cruise control on motorcycles. I think that it's one of my favorite things. It takes a little pressure away from the right wrist on the long haul, on the commute. As long as there's not too much traffic around, I think that it is a neat feature as long as you keep your focus. But unfortunately, just like the RS 660 that I have ridden hundreds of miles aboard, the Tuono 660 has quite buzzy mirrors. This test unit maybe isn't as bad as the RS that I have experienced, but really anything above 5,000-6,000 RPM, if we were going a little bit faster down the freeway, I don't want to say they become useless, but they really struggle to paint a picture of what's going on behind you. Kind of a shame, but it is what it is. We got a 3.9 gallon fuel tank on this Tuono 660. Now, during our testing, I see about an average of 42 miles per gallon. I do have to admit, sometimes it can go a bit higher, but the characteristic of this motorcycle makes you just want to get on it and wail. This thing is so addicting to open the throttle, hear that parallel twin just kind of roar, and in turn kind of hurts your gas mileage. So, in all honesty, I think that you could get 150 miles out of a tank pretty comfortably if you aren't just wailing on it. But I think that the minute you guys get on this motorcycle and experience what it has to offer, that's going to be a hard thing to hold yourself back from. Now, one thing I forgot to mention in terms of ergonomics is the relatively low 32.2 inch seat height that we measured on the motorcyclist lift back at the office. Now, as you know, I'm short, I'm racer size, as I like to joke, a 5'7" stature. I find myself pretty comfortably navigating slow speeds and stops on this bike. The seat itself is a little bit narrow, so maybe a 32.2 inches seems just slightly tall to you guys. What I have to say is that narrow shape of the seat, like I really kind of, even just now, just for funsies, I stopped to put my feet down and I'm pretty comfortable. Maybe not flat foot, but I'm pretty comfortable. The narrow shape of that seat lends itself to feeling a little bit shorter, offering more contact, if that's the right word, at the ground. So, you know, it's pretty approachable. Ladies and gentlemen, we're approaching the MC Commute motorcyclist wheelie zone as we get here to the office. Now, it wouldn't be a real Tuono if we couldn't pop some serious wheelies, so we're gonna put this thing to the test for you guys, but I have very high hopes, very, very high hopes for this machine. All right, MC Commute fans, let's hit it. Let's give this guy a show. Wow. Yup, it rightfully earns its name, the Tuono 660. I knew it was gonna happen, as I'm sure you guys did too, but what a bike this machine is. All right, our MC Commute on this 2021 Aprilia Tuono 660 is coming to an end. This thing has quickly gained my liking, my love for this bike, as I've always loved the Tuono V4, and this thing looks like a Tuono, it feels like a Tuono, and it rides like a Tuono, but in a more approachable, more affordable package. It doesn't come with that big V4 horsepower that might get you into trouble with the law, with yourself. Now, that being said, I probably wouldn't recommend this to a brand new rider, but I think for riders looking as a stepping stone up to maybe a Tuono or a Hyper Naked, an open class Hyper Naked, this could be a worthy option. Now, again, back to the Aprilia stance on that. This thing is $10,499 MSRP without that quick shifter fitted. Ours was $10,699 as tested. To put that in comparison, the Tuono 1100 V4 is $15,499, I believe. So quite a price difference in comparison to those models. It's also relatively somewhat expensive, though, in comparison to similar middleweight models. But that being said, the Aprilia Tuono 660 has that premium fit and finish, as we've discussed. I think that they've done an incredible job. They've done an incredible job providing that in this lower cost, lower displacement model. Now, that 659cc power plant is awfully addicting. 87 horsepower up on our dyno, as we said. Very tractable, very easy to use, but at 8,000 RPM, it really kind of takes life. And that exhaust note, the intake, it just is somewhat reminiscent of that V4, and it just becomes so addicting. Now, the chassis, they've done an incredible job with the chassis. They made those revisions specifically focused at the Tuono platform. They could have easily stepped away from that, delivered it as is, as the RS660 with an upright handlebar and a little bit different foot peg position. but I have to give kudos to Aprilia on that one. I think they've done an incredible job. That 660 really it utilizes the Tuono, and the personality that comes with it is just unbelievable. So that is it for our time aboard the 2021 Aprilia Tuono 660. I hope that you guys liked it as much as I did, and I hope that you all have the chance to at least swing a leg over this at least once, because it really is an unbelievable machine. Now, if you like this video, like it, comment, we want to hear from you, and subscribe to the Motorcyclist YouTube channel. Head over to motorcyclistonline.com to read the full story, and we'll see you guys next time.